What's going on? This is Mitch Wilderness Games, and today we're going to work on that stalker again. Stay tuned. So the first golden rule of working on games is check your voltages. And I've worked on cleaning pins and all this other stuff, and I neglected that. So I need to rectify that. All right. We've got juice. And here comes a stalker. I love this game, man. This is definitely one of my favorites of all time. It's funny, man. This exact like this game was the game when I thought of that I would look for a game to buy. This is the first game I searched for. Imagine stalker. Who does that? Everyone always searches for asteroids or Space Invaders or Donkey Kong or whatever, right? The usual stuff, I think. Robotrons, stuff like that people like, pole positions. I'm assuming red and black here. Might have to pull that off. 4 volts. Seriously?
Oh no!
Wow. Dude, that is short, man. Oh man, that's really short. That's not like 4.9. 4.24? That's horrific. I got a power issue. Thank you, Matt, for reminding me to check my voltages before I go crazy on this thing. So right here is the steering, 4.2. I followed it back to this connector down here. That's literally a wire connected here, 4.2. So let's check this now. 4.25. What do we got over here in the shifter? Let's see. 4.25 at the shifter. Sorry if you couldn't see that. So this is all getting the same power. Over here, the start button. Let's see what this is getting. 4.25. So everything's getting 4.2. And this whole control panel is getting 4.2. So that's actually a good thing, because it tells me that the problem is further down the line. 5.05 off the power supply itself. We have liftoff. Got the control panel out. Jay's gonna show me his wizardry so we can fix my stalker. Let's go to the arcade.
So the thing to notice right here is, see these really thick traces?
Mm-hmm.
This is a power trace, right?
Okay.
The thinner ones are probably signal traces, meaning, you know, they're the ones that are carrying your push button or your steering control. But the thicker traces are always power traces, right? So you probably have power here, power here, power here, and one of these other ones might be power. This one might be a power line too. So one is definitely a ground, and if we were to mate it up to the connector on the other side, we'd see red and black, and that's usually power and ground, right? So
yeah, this one was power for sure.
Okay.
On the outside.
So see how thick that solder is on that pin?
Yeah.
It's like the big glob around it.
Right.
See how these are pretty thin? Like there's not a lot of solder around these.
Yeah, it's almost like somebody already touched that.
Exactly,
and that
exactly.
Right?
Somebody touched that one up, but they didn't touch this one up. This is a power trace. See this one right in the middle?
Mm-hmm.
It's thick. So we got to touch that up. We should touch them all up, right?
Right.
Because.
But just as like the methodology of what you're thinking. Yeah.
Correct.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah, no problem. So we should touch those up, and these look okay here, but sometimes you always want to check these too. Like this is that other connector.
Right, and it also has a thick trace on it.
Yeah, so
Which
that's
must be the
power,
continuation of this one. You would.
That
think.
is, yeah. See, it's just kind of going from here, and look what it hits along the way. It hits this little capacitor here, and then it hits this diode here. So it's hitting these two devices. That power trace coming down, hitting all that, and then it's going to this pin. Yeah, we're just going to reflow. I talked about the power traces, looking for the thick, edge here. This one actually looks like it's been reflowed already once before. But so sometimes you just have to add a little solder to get the other solder to flow, because the new solder will have flux in it, and sometimes flux is what they use to basically make solder flow. So by adding a little solder, you're actually adding a little flux, and that's going to help the old solder flow, and it'll add a little bit of new solder to the pin. But you see what I'm doing? Like, as I'm adding the new solder and heating up the old solder, the old solder starting to melt. And here we go. What happens is you want to kind of wick that solder up the pin. Like, as I'm getting the solder to flow, I'm trying to wick it up. So it's on the pad, but it's also forming a nice, kind of like a
cone.
Exactly, like a cone on the top of the pin, around the pin. That just means you're just going to have a better, or less chance of a cracked solder joint, the more, you kind of have wicking up the pin there, I think the less chance you're going to have of just a cracked solder joint on the bottom, like some of these might have, so.
So you're putting the iron on the opposite side initially.
Yeah, I mean, it'll heat up the solder, and then once it gets to a point, it's just all going to start to flow. The whole thing is just going to start to heat up, and where sometimes you might have a problem is if you have a thick etch, because remember, this etch is connected to these pins. This is going to wick away heat, and it's going to, transfer heat away from the pin, but you need the heat in order to get the solder to flow. So a lot of times if you have a thick etch or what's called a plane, like a ground plane, it might take longer to heat up that pin and heat up the solder, because the etch that's connected to that pin is also taking the heat away, and you need the heat in order to get the solder to flow. So I'm going to do the same to this. You can see this solder joint's kind of weak. I don't know if you can zoom in here, but on that side you can see the solder's kind of broken, and on this side of the pin here it's kind of missing some solder. So, and that's one of the power lines. It's probably ground or 5 volts. So we're going to add a little solder.
Yeah, I can see there's much less on that side.
Yeah, and we're just going to go around and do all these. And this may or may not solve your problem, but if nothing else at all, it's just making a better long-term connection.
So these are all reflowed. Jay just showed me how. I'd never done it before. That was pretty easy. He did this board, I did the other one.
close to the beginning of the wire as it is. Snipped it, so that's the old one. And then you take, again, any type of wire strippers, but the ones that Jay has, pretty easy to use. 14 gauge maybe. Just expose a little bit of the wire. That's all bondage. I'm going to kind of put it in there so that, again, that bottom piece is gripping onto the insulated piece of the wire, and the other piece is inside a little bit more. And then, so it's a little tricky because you want that actual exposed wire to be a little bit closer. And you want to kind of just force this in here a little bit, just enough to pop it in. So you want to put a little bit of force, not so much that you kind of crush, because I know sometimes I put all the force into it and you basically push the pin right through the insulated piece of the wire.
I've done that with your fans and so on.
Yeah, I've done that before too. So you want to put a little bit of force. I usually try to go around a little bit to make sure all the wings are tight.
Surgery. Wire surgery.
Yeah, you were in that.
It's not the best either. See, I flattened it a little too much. Try this. And unfortunately, this stage wire is a little bit too big. But give it a little pull. That's not bad now. And then you can just pop it back in. And let's see.
And you put the locking tab up towards
Correct.
that slot.
Yep.
Right.
So I always make that mistake too. Seeing I'm getting a little bit of exposed wire still. Just fast. Make sure you crimp everything down. And then again, that little pin you want exposed to where that slot is.
Right.
Then you kind of slide it all back in.
The locking pin up towards
It should pop in.
the unlock slot. That makes sense.
And sometimes you gotta put a little pressure in there, and then it should lock.
It should make like a click or something.
Yeah, it might not, but as long as it's kind of connected in. And again, you can put a little bit of
fat
force on
wire
there.
too.
Yeah, it's a little bit bigger than the other ones. The ones that you normally deal with are a little bit smaller.
Yeah, it might even be too fat, I would think, for that connector, huh? I wonder if somebody put that in, after themselves. Like they put that connector in. It's probably not stock.
Maybe.
It's probably not stock from the factory.
But yeah,
But I don't know.
it's in. You
Think
can
it's
see
in, yeah.
you can see where these connectors are, and now where
It's
there's
lined
that
up.
connector.
Yeah,
Yep,
wow, it's
lined
a lot
up.
shinier than the others.
Yeah. So, and then the other thing you want to make sure of is when I put these in backwards before, which again, as we learn, so
Right.
instead of putting the pin in the correct way, I put it in backwards. If you look at this way, and if you were to do it backwards, see how you can see like the hole is open, and this hole is open, but it also has like the connectors on each side. So basically, when you put your connector in there, it should now grasp it and hold on to it a little bit tighter.
Yeah.
And this might be a little bit, so that's where it helps, because this will be a little bit looser, but that'll be a tighter
It looks
connection.
like a tighter connection, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so we're back in the home arcade. We're going to try out the control panel, check voltages, see if it works. It's really great working at the arcade. I'm learning a lot. I'm able to help out, work on things, and help where I can, I've been on a joystick tear lately. Mostly, or completely Nintendo cabinets, actually. Last couple weeks, let's see, I rebuilt the Donkey Kong joystick, Donkey Kong Jr., Donkey Kong 3, versus Castlevania, Made him real happy. Happy, happy, happy. Oh man. Okay, so here's what just happened. It was reading 3.79, first off. Secondly, the wire came undone, the power wire. 5 volts. Dude, I'm getting 3.8 right now. What? Dude, that's terrible. That is trash. Came undone from the Trifficon clip. So I'll see if I can fix that. First I need to get this pin out, which comes out. Alright. It's all crushed up, right? The pin is... I'm going to have to open this up now. Okay. That took way too long. Have it flattened out. I might just need to create the side walls with the wings, 2 flaps. Not too bad. Yeah, see, this wire is a little too fat. So that's why it came undone in the first place. So I'm going to shave it down a little. Man, with the right tools, this is like, takes 1 minute. Complications, this takes way too long. Okay, we salvaged it. We fixed it. It's strong. So we're all hooked up. Everything's good. I don't like the connectors coming off the main harness either. I might clean those out. But let's get a meter on this. So 4.3 is what I got here. 4.32. .33. Yeah, 4.3. Man, still right around that realm. The main harness, like going into this board here, the first board, it comes from the PCB and goes into this first board. Then from there, goes through the board, comes through another wire, and goes to my steering board. This is 4.36. So I'm losing 0.03 volts between these two that me and Jay just worked on. That's amazing. That's like almost no loss at all in our work that we did ourselves. .39. Okay, so okay, so this is the harness before it goes. It's 4.39 here, 4.36 up there, 4.33. So I'm losing 0.03 every connection, which is fine. So that's fine. That's not a problem. So what I really need to do is pull this thing out and test it off the power supply itself, or really on the motherboard. Jay was telling me always check it on the motherboard if I can as well, because that's what really matters, is knowing what the voltage is on the motherboard, what the CPU is getting. Okay, campers, here we are in the Stalker debacle saga. Pulled the cabinet out, motherboard, PCB, the whole stack. I need to go through this whole thing and follow the power. And as it comes up, again, I'll follow it. Looks like it goes here to the power supply. I'm going to check for connectors that have burnt up. It's possible the edge connectors right there are burnt up or junk, and it's losing power over there. So this is the 5-volt output. This is the 12-volt output. So this power supply creates 12 volts and 5, and they're both solid. 5 and 12 go in right there. Come out up here, which gets turned into that right there, which goes to my control panel. That's one of the paths it takes. Now remember, my control panel has been running like 4.3. It's been off. So I just checked those two connectors. Where is it there? There we are. And the wire coming from the PCB, from the motherboard, was 5.9 for both. 5.97 and 5.98. On the other side, I found the same wires, even though the colors changed. This turned to brown with a red stripe. It turned to orange with a red stripe. 5.9, 4.9 and 4.8 still. So as far as I know, it's going to my control panel all the way up, fully powered. So I'm gonna read it there. If it's 4.9 there, then it's got to be somewhere else, and me moving things around, connecting in and out, disconnecting, reconnecting, caused it to happen, and now it's a strong connection again. So this must be live on this side. Dude, it says 3.8 now. What? It's got to be the problem then, because I just checked this. .97. Okay, but that red wire is not being used in this connector. That's fun, right? Isn't that nice? There's unused wires. So ridiculous. I'm assuming it's because each control panel, whether it's a trackball, whether it's a driving wheel, steering wheel, has different necessities. And so the motherboard has to have a wire here for every possibility, but the control panel doesn't. Only the middle strip and this gray one are being used. This is ground, that's live, 5 volts, and the orange in the middle, that's 5 volts. So that would correspond on this side to ground right here, on this pin, ground there, 5 volts there, 5 volts there. Which is this one, white with a green stripe. This one, white with a black stripe. These are live. And this black with a brown stripe is ground. So, am I going to get 3.8 again on the other side of this, when I just got 4.97 perfectly, right up to this point? This is supposed to be 5. What do we have? 4.97. Okay. What about the other side? 4.97. Dude, this just said 3.8. And now it's 4.97. Alright. So let's move this around a little bit. And maybe kind of like unseat it. And see if it's just from a lack of contact over here. They're just not holding on well. That's all it is. 4.97. 4.97. Okay, let's move the wires around a little bit. See if there's a short anywhere. You know, loose connection. 497. 497. I'm going to have new pins coming in, Trifurcon pins. And once they come in a couple days, I'm going to take this wire out and swap it out for a size that better suits it. So that will be next time. Alright, there's the stalker. We are doing our best here to figure out what is wrong with the stalker. What is wrong? See you guys in the next one.